respectful of your time and start the meeting. Jenny sends her regrets. She had something come up that she could not schedule. So she asked me to chair this meeting. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we'll do introductions. And I am, of course, Tracy from the State Library. Genevieve, do you want to go next?
I'm Genevieve Lighthizer, admin for the State Library.
Great. Hanor?
Hanar Bray, director of Missoula Public Library.
Sean?
I'm Sean Anderson from Imagine If Libraries.
Susie?
I'm Susie McIntyre, director of the Great Falls Public Library.
Erin?
Erin LaFramboise, director at Medicine Spring Library, Blackfeet Community College.
And let's do Dalton.
Got it. Hello, this is Dalton, the State Library Commission.
Dorlin.
Dorlin Rossman, Montana State University in Bozeman.
And Jonna.
Donna Underwood, Sheridan County Library Director.
And let's see, Kara.
Hi everyone, Kara Orban, Montana State Library.
Okay, I also saw Pam.
Hi, Pam Henley, consulting librarian with the State Library.
And Dave.
Dave Shearer, Billings Public Library, public lurker.
Well, that's good. Welcome, Dave. Did I miss anyone? All right. Well, we will move down to the minutes. So you have the May 4th meeting minutes there for your reference. I just need to know if anyone has any corrections for the August 8th draft meeting minutes. And if not, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move. That's Susie.
And may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sean. Any further discussion or questions? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Please say nay. And is anyone abstaining?
Tracy, this is Dalton. I'm going to abstain from just approving these minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Dalton. So the motion carries. All right, let's go ahead and move down to the bylaws. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jonna, Sean, did you and Jody help Jenny with these bylaws? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, it was the
Okay.
4 of us.
Oh, and Jody's here. Great. Welcome, Jody. So do you...
I went from one meeting to the next.
It's totally fine. We understand. And Jenny's not able to be with us today, so I'm the chair. I'm not sure when you popped in. Do you want to kind of share anything about the bylaws? Does anyone have any questions or comments for them?
Susie does.
I have a question.
Good.
In Article 8,
Okay.
I just think the wording is a little bit confusing where it says non-attendance, which is defined as missing 2 unexcused regular meetings. The regular meetings aren't unexcused. The absence is.
Oh. Yeah.
So maybe having 2 unexcused absences from regular meetings or something else, but it just, I just think it's grammatically could use a little love.
No, that's a good point. You're right. It is the absences that are unexcused. Would the group be okay with adding non-attendance, which is defined as 2 unexcused absences from regular meetings in a calendar year, be
I
acceptable
like
to
that. I
the
think
group?
that's a good
Yes.
check, Susie. We had, I think we overworked that because we, we kept thinking, well, it needs to be unexcused absences and et cetera, et cetera. And so I think you're right. We landed on something that doesn't read too well. Good change.
Any other suggestions or changes or questions?
I think what I would just add to this is that, and Jody and Jonna can weigh in wherever it makes sense. It seems like the sort of a stumbling to getting this group up and running and feeling comfortable with where we're at was sort of a lack of structure. So I think it was not unexpected, but as we started working through this, we saw the need grow for, we would love to have some more foundations here and some walls put up here. And it grew in a really organic way into this bylaws document that's in front of us. So it's, I think, just calling out the intent of it to give some structure to this group and what the intent of this group is and how this group will work into the future is healthy for us, and to just let you know what the process was, that the detail that's in there was very well thought through and very well considered.
Thank you, Sean. I think that background's always helpful. Does anyone have any concerns or questions?
Hey, Tracy, this is
Yeah.
Dalton.
Yeah.
Within resignation, removal, vacancies, leave of absence, is there any worry about ADA when we are removing the member has suffered a behavioral or physical disability which prevents the member from competently performing their duties?
That is a really great question, Dalton. What does the group think?
I didn't quite catch all of that on Dalton's audio. Could somebody or Dalton, could you just rephrase that again for me? I missed part of that.
Yeah, my concern is with the American with Disabilities Act. This potentially is protected class, and it could be a liability.
Was that better, Jonna? Or do
Yes,
you
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Jonna or Sean, do you remember the origin of that bullet point?
Yeah, I mean, in very broad strokes, I do. This was actually borrowed language from another set of bylaws. And I think the intent there is like, if somebody were in a car accident, for example, and was in a coma and could not take part, something like that, as unfortunate as it is, shouldn't disrupt the function of this work. That said, I totally understand where Dalton's coming from as it being a liability, that maybe it's not worth having that clause in there.
I mean, if we,
Go ahead, Dalton.
I mean, I'm comfortable with the missing 2 meetings. If you're in a coma and miss 2 meetings, there you go.
Go ahead, Susie.
Well, I actually have experienced this with somebody who was starting to experience dementia and wasn't ready to recuse themselves from stuff. So I'm happy with taking it out. I'm also happy to say something like, while the NAC is committed to providing, you know, accommodations to ensure that all members can do their work, if a member experiences a circumstance which prevents the member from competently performing their duties, or something like that. Maybe. I don't know that it's going to happen frequently enough to make a big deal out of it, but I get why it's in there.
Okay.
But the bullet point, just could we remove the part that says member has suffered a behavioral or physical disability and just focus on an inability to competently perform their duties?
That's a very good question, Jody. And then I want to acknowledge in the chat that I think Kara was referring to the example of someone who's injured and in a coma, that concern would be covered under the third bullet. I believe that's what you meant, Kara.
Yes, and yes, somebody said that while I was chatting. So
Okay, perfect. So Jody asked the group the question is basically, is the concern more about the member, you know, not being competent in performing their duties, and could we remove that? What does the group think about that?
It goes down to reliability and validity. How do you test competency as a membership?
That's a good point.
And the rose-colored glasses I view the world, and all these library folk are so wonderful that these bullets aren't necessary. So I guess it's the question for the group is, do we feel that we need the coverage given to us by that second bullet point? Are we concerned that that could be a realistic issue we'd be facing, or, you know, do we just let that bullet point go?
I'm comfortable letting it go. I think that Kara's right that the third bullet point covers the most likely scenario, and somebody who's, you know, otherwise incompetent or unable to do the work that's expected of them. I feel like the case could be made that the first bullet point accounts for that as well. You know, sabotaging our work is injurious to the state and the NAC and the library community, and would thus be grounds for removal. I'm fine just ditching it.
This is Hanor, and I agree with Jody. I always feel like sometimes we overthink things, and the simpler the better. So I would strike the second bullet point.
Tracy, do we need motions if we are making small or large changes to bylaws?
You know, that's a great question, Jody. Would the group like to take each change as a motion, or do you want to have one motion at the end adopting all the changes? I'm comfortable with either.
Since it's a draft, Tracy, since it's a draft, it's not an official document. So do we need to make a motion?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, I was thinking my plan was to just make the changes, and then I'm keeping notes, and then at the end I would summarize the changes that the NAC has made and ask for a motion to adopt the document with those changes.
That's what I would do also.
Yes, Jody votes for that as well.
Okay, all right. We heard from a few NAC members. Could I just hear from a few others though about your comfort level with striking the second bullet under Article 8, resignations and removal? Are others okay with that?
This is Donna, and I'm okay with it.
Okay.
This is Dora. Sorry, this is Dora Lynn. I'm okay with it too.
Okay, Great, thank you. I think that's everyone. All right, so we will strike that. Are there any other changes that you want to make to this document? Or any other questions or comments?
Tracy, I should be more familiar with the document and have it sitting in front of me, but I don't. Can you just comfort me that there's enough of us present at this meeting here today to formally adopt these bylaws?
Yes, actually, there are 7 NAC members out of the 9 here. Actually, Dalton, I believe you are a voting member, right? You make the 10th member, so there are 8 out of 10.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, so to summarize, we would like to change this draft. Both changes are in Article 8. We're going to strike the second bullet starting with the member has suffered a behavioral or physical disability. So we will delete that one. And we're going to change non-attendance, which is defined as 2 unexcused absences at regular meetings in a calendar year. May I have a motion to accept these bylaws with those changes?
I would move to accept the bylaws with the changes.
Thank you, Hanor. And may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Erin. Any further question, comments, or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And is anyone abstaining? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Can I just say thanks to the committee for doing all this work? Good job.
They did
Yeah,
a great
thank you.
job. Thank you. I mean, that's pretty impressive to only have 2 changes, you know.
It's really that like calendar thing that's sort of like, woo, we're not talking about that today.
Thank goodness.
No, no, we're not.
This
That will
was
be,
easy.
yeah, that was an impressive amount of work on the calendar, which just a heads up, fellow NAC members, your November 9th meeting material, the packet's pretty hefty and it's all available. So you might want to take a look at it when you get a chance. So we go back to the agenda. We did link to the work of the other subcommittee of the NAC that was working on the planning and evaluation framework, and that was Erin and Sean, Jenny, and I. And you know, this is just an opportunity for you to let us know if you have any questions. This is on your agenda on November 9th. We put it here because we thought we might have a chance to just see if you had any questions, and because we can see that your November 9th agenda is pretty intense. You'll be thinking really hard. So this is an opportunity for you. Does anyone have any questions or comments on those? Or you just want to wait till November 9th?
Well, this is Donna, and I just was kind of curious about, I mean, obviously they're different, but it seems like there's some similarity and crossover between the Core Services Program Evaluation Network or Framework form and then the planning document for committee.
Mm-hmm.
So could the 4 of you or 3 of you, excuse me, just go into just a little more detail about kind of the thought behind both of those?
Yeah. And Erin or Sean, do you want to start? Or do you want me to do it?
So are we talking about the planning framework and then the evaluation framework?
Yes, they are very similar. I mean, they're different. There's subtle differences, but there are some similarities.
I want other people to fill in whatever or the many gaps that I'm going to leave in this. But the way that I would explain how they're different yet very similar is that the planning framework is more of a tool for the core service committees to sort of pre-evaluate their plans, to treat it as a rubric to make sure that they're considering who's going to be benefiting from this effort, what the longer term impact is, what kind of commitment, financial time, etc., is to be expected from this project. And then the evaluation portion of it comes later, after this, a given project has been implemented. It's had some time to live for a little while, and then we can return and see if it is actually checking the boxes that we expected it to check. So they are very similar, but I think the timing with which they're applied and used is what makes them distinct.
Okay. Erin, do you want to add anything?
I really second Sean. I really think that part of the reason there are the two documents is I think originally we had these all in one form, and it was overwhelming. And I really like the way we kind of broke it up to, a pre and a post evaluation. So yeah, I think that's all I have.
Yeah, and my memory, in addition to the timing and the evaluation kind of being services or projects that already exist, and the planning being things you want to do in the future, is I think we were trying to be very outcome focused. And these documents, that's why you see a lot of the similarities, is because whether you're evaluating a past service or planning for a future, the idea of building it around outcomes is something that we were trying to do. Did that answer your question, Jonna and Jody?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. It looks good. Thanks you guys for working on that too. That's great.
Yeah, you bet.
Susie has a question and I have one too.
Okay, thanks.
So my question, and I guess I feel dumb that I don't have clarity here, but maybe other people have this as well. In the roles and the responsibilities, I guess I'm a little unclear. Like, do we want to put the governing bodies of the different groups in there? Because that's one of the things I'm not clear about, of like, so how does the selection team for Montana Library to Go and the membership of Montana Library to Go and the membership of the partners and the membership of the courier fit into that? Because we can't, like, to change something about Montana Library to Go actually takes a vote of the consortium members. Sean has brought some stuff up about the Advantage program, and I don't even know where that question goes. So, and maybe other people have more clarity about that, but I don't.
You would be comforted if you could have heard the conversation between Kara, Amy, and I, Susie, because it was kind of along the same lines. It's like, okay, now that this is real and we're trying to do this, how does this work? So that's a great question.
And I think those questions are also happening within those groups, like at the shared catalog level, at the partners level, we're wondering the same thing. I have thoughts. There's been discussion, but I don't know that there's a hard and fast answer to that at this point.
Yeah, I think that that's a very important question for you as a NAC that I certainly have for you, and I know other staff members do too. Knowing that we only have a few minutes left on this meeting, what I would propose is that we talk about that at your November 9th meeting, because I know we talked to Jenny about this and certainly saw those groups as continuing to exist, although at one time we had talked about them dissolving. And so I think there's some confusion about that. As we go through this and we kind of face the realities of it, there may and there probably is still a need for those groups to exist. And not only that, there's kind of a feeling, and we've heard from librarians in those groups, that particularly if libraries are contributing to the cost of a project or to how it runs, they want to have that representation. And so I would share that it would be so helpful to us as staff members to hear from you at your November 9th meeting. Do you agree that we should keep those existing committees? And if we do, what do they do versus these core services committees, and how do we kind of manage the workload of it? Because while this work can be very energizing, there's also like a lot of logistics and flat out cat herding in doing this kind of work. And so I worry a lot, particularly about Kara, who has a lot of these committees under her responsibility. So that would be very helpful to us to discuss at the November 9th meeting. Any other
At the
questions?
agenda, I see like it says adoption of planning and evaluation framework documents action, and then there's these 5 documents under it, which are like kind of all different and potentially loaded. And are we adopting that these are like, this is where we are right now, these are very changeable documents, we're gonna make adaptations as we go? Like what are we taking action on when we look at them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I put action on there because I think particularly if the NAC could help like really clarify the roles and responsibilities, I think that would be so helpful. And that is an item that maybe some action would be good. I think it's up to you if you want to take action on like not even saying temporary, but for right now, we're adopting these frameworks and we want you to work on this, that's fine. I also think that the frameworks themselves, if you're like, no, just give these to the committees, let's try it and see what happens, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm also fine if you don't think it requires action to kind of define the roles and responsibilities. But I think for the reasons that Sean and Susie mentioned and some of the staff mentioned, it would be very helpful to just have some clarity about how
It requires consensus, if nothing else, right? But
yeah.
I love to see things written out. So I'm not fighting against that. I just thought that seems like a lot of things if we were trying to adopt them as like one solid block of documents. And so I wondered if there was the opportunity to kind of break them up and continue, adopt them, but say we're going to work through these and changes can be made. And it sounds like that's what we're talking about. So I'm good with that.
Okay, great. And then I want to acknowledge Sean's point about being prepared to do some change management with folks on these existing committees. Things will likely look different and we need not get too hung up on that. That's a good point, Sean. And I think that is something you should think about. And I interrupted you. Go ahead, Sean.
It's okay. My question was for Kara, and it sounds like Kara, Tracy, and Amy were having conversations as well. These evaluation frameworks, these more final documents, are these further along in what you need, Kara? Because my memory is fuzzy, but it's clear enough that I remember there being like not enough detail in these frameworks, not quite answering the questions that you needed answered. Did these make some progress in that arena?
Well, I haven't really had an opportunity to try out the second draft, so I can't fully answer that question. I think that the changes are more, it's organized so that we're not immediately putting people into thinking about specific platforms. So that's beneficial. But I will be able to tell you more maybe in a couple months after I've gone through this with a second committee.
That's almost like an argument for not maybe adopting the formal frameworks and kind of trying them out again and seeing what we get. Just a thought. So I see that we are at actually 3:31, and I want to be respectful of your time. If you think of any other questions or comments that you want to just share with me before your November 9th meeting, please don't hesitate. This was a good discussion, and I think it will help us make the best use of your time. And I think also it might help to look at this in conjunction with the NAC calendar that Jody, Sean, and Jonna and Jenny created. I think that will be useful as well. Is there any public comment or any other business and announcements that anyone wishes to make? All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? I think we're big enough. We actually do need a motion.
I so move.
Everybody's willing to do that one. All right. And I'm assuming everyone's in favor. I actually can't remember. I think you can just do an adjournment. You don't have to vote. Does anyone know?
I think you don't have to
You
vote.
can just adjourn.
You can just
That's
adjourn.
what I thought. All right. Thank you everyone for your
Thanks,
time
Tracy.
today.
Bye, everybody.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
See
Bye-bye.
you next week. Bye-bye.